Welcome to the What Bitcoin Did podcast.
Hello there from Laramie, Wyoming. How are you all? I've made it out here for Caitlin Long's Wire Hackathon. Very excited to go to the event and meet a bunch of people and see what they're doing up here in Wyoming. Also, massive thank you for all the great feedback from the show that I just released with Ragnar discussing guns and Bitcoin. Really blown away by the feedback. Seems that show resonated with a lot of people. So thank you for that. Anyway, welcome to the What Bitcoin Did podcast, which is brought to you by Kraken, the best place to buy and sell Bitcoin. I'm your host, Peter McCormack, and today I've got an interview with my good friend Dan Held, where we discuss Bitcoin, UX, and marketing. But firstly, I do have a message from my show sponsors. And remember, don't skip this. It is the sponsors that allow me to make this happen. So today's show is brought to you by my new sponsor, MyBookie. I've been talking about them for a couple of weeks now. And at the end of a hard week, it's great to sit down, take some time off, watch some football, and I'm totally getting into the NFL. I'm loving how the Jets season is over already, and you know what? I like having a bet myself. I love having a bet on the football, and there's no place now that I would bet other than MyBookie, not just because they're a sponsor, because they also accept Bitcoin, and no one gives you more ways to win than they do, and MyBookie's got the fastest payouts and the best lines of any sportsbook. I wouldn't be telling you about them if I didn't trust them, if I didn't think they were the best. So if you're the kind of person like me who wants to bet, you want to have a go, then MyBookie is the place for you. Also, they've got a promo code for listeners of the show. If you use WBitcoin, you can double your first deposit. Just visit mybookie.ag, which is mybookie.ag, and you can bet on your football today. Also, today's show is brought to you by Dropbit. And, oh man, they've told me about 2 updates that are coming, both amazing. I really want to tell you about it. I was really tempted to do it and just risk getting in trouble, but I'm not going to do that. But hopefully very soon I'm going to be able to tell you about both these cool updates. I'm also heading out to Ohio to hang out with them in October. We're going to be doing an event. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin, probably giving Bitcoin away. They really are my favorite mobile Bitcoin app. I love it. I've been using it again while I've been away here. It is just like a Venmo for Bitcoin. Not only can you scan the QR codes and paste addresses like most wallets, but they've got these cool additional features like texting Bitcoins to friends and tweeting Bitcoin to friends. So if you haven't checked it out, what you're doing, go and download it today. It's available for the iPhone and Android. Just head over to dropbit.app, which is dropbit.app. Also, one more thing today. As I've mentioned recently, I'm going to be speaking and doing a couple of live podcasts at CES in Los Angeles on October the 15th, including a live show with Travis Kling, which is going to be very cool. And the organisers of CES, Joseph and Alon of GHV, have just launched a campaign to give everyone free tickets to the conference and also give everyone who shows up $50 in Bitcoin. They are on a tear to spread mass adoption of Bitcoin and are literally paying you to get started. It's going to be huge. If you head over to cis.la/free, you can find out more about how you can get paid in Bitcoin to come out to the event and hang out with me in LA. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so on to the show with Dan, and it's a show I've wanted to do for a while now. It's great to have him back. I've really got to know Dan over this last year. He's become a good friend. And also, it's no secret to anyone who listens to the show that I've been a critic of Bitcoin UX at times. Sometimes I think it sucks. Sometimes I think it's a little bit hard to use. I used to be a UX designer, and I've always tried to follow the approach of the Steve Crook book, which says, don't make me think. So whenever I'm looking at something, I'm always trying to imagine where someone might get tripped up, where it might get complicated. And look, I'm not dumping on everything. There's some great projects, some great teams doing some amazing things. I love what Carter's doing. I love what Jack Mallers is doing with Zap. But overall, I still think there's work to be done, and it's fair to talk about this. If you try and look at it from a newcomer's perspective, getting into Bitcoin is hard. Even buying Bitcoin from an exchange can be daunting. And then once you've bought your Bitcoin, you have to create a wallet, you have to save your keys. You're told a hardware wallet is the thing to do, and then maybe you should have a node. This isn't an easy journey for people. However much people laugh at me for saying this, it just isn't. And having spoken to people, I know that some will struggle with it. Most Bitcoiners now are pretty tech savvy. And it's just the nature of the industry that it attracts tech-savvy people. But you do have to be somewhat technically competent and quite risk-tolerant. And this becomes much more of an issue when trying to bring Bitcoin to the masses. Like, can you imagine all your family members managing their private keys, having good OPSEC, running a node? Probably not. So to get more adoption, how do you tread that line between self-sovereignty and not doing something stupid? And can you innovate with UX and help solve these issues without reducing security? Anyway, look, there's loads to discuss on this topic, and me and Dan get deep into it, along with advertising and marketing. If Satoshi was a master marketeer, we talk about privacy and Apple pushing privacy with their recent marketing and how Dan got involved in the space. So we cover a lot. You got any questions about it, hit me up. It's hello@whatbitcoindid.com. Just a note, I'm off to Palm Springs on Monday for Crypto Springs. Going to be there for a couple of days, and then going to be heading out to LA for a few days. And then in October, I'm going to be heading out to Ohio with the Dropbit guys, and then off to LA for CIS. So loads happening. Got any questions, do reach out to me. Hi, Daniel. How are you?
Doing well, Pete.
Back on the show. Second appearance, man. Is it second or third?
It's the second.
Second.
It should have been the third by now.
Yeah. Well, do you know what it was? I like doing them in person. Your first one was remote.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, we're on different sides of the earth.
Yeah, although we've met up a lot of times. I mean, what have I known you, like 6 months?
I think I've probably seen you at least 6 or 7 times in that
we
time frame.
See each other monthly in Europe and here in America. Anyway, welcome back. So firstly, because we're going to get into the UX and the design stuff that I've been talking about, maybe talk about NodeGate, but you've had some changes, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, some pretty big changes. So for those who don't know, I co-founded a company called Interchange, which was a company that helped institutional trading infrastructure reconcile their trade activity. So most retail traders understand that their taxes are very complex when it comes to, getting together all of their on-chain data and exchange data. And so we essentially did that same thing for institutional traders. And we were recently acquired, as of a month ago, by Kraken. So I'm coming on board as Director of Business Development across multiple Kraken products. And Interchange will still exist and will continue to service those institutional traders who we think is a really good fit for Kraken's other suite of products.
And I like Kraken.
I think Kraken's a pretty awesome company.
A pretty fucking awesome company. If you're not trading on Kraken, what are you doing? They're the best website for buying and selling Bitcoin. It's like my ads, right?
I think this might be an entire Kraken ad, the whole episode,
whole
right?
episode,
the whole episode.
They'll be like, fuck you, Pete. You're such a shill. You're only doing this because you're a paid shill. But it is a cool company, right?
I've known Jesse for almost 7 years now. When I first moved to San Francisco, I met him and others at the Bitcoin meetup. And that was really, really cool back then, because back then it was only like Jesse, Jared Kenna from Trade Hill, he owns 20 Mission. It was hosted at 20 Mission, the meetups. And there was, Jed McCaleb, Brian and Fred from Coinbase, Charlie Lee. It was a very, very small-knit community, small, tight-knit community, and that's where I first met Jesse. And the reason why I really like Kraken is Jesse plowed a lot of his own money into it.
Yeah.
And he really believed in it. And not many Silicon Valley founders do that. Most Silicon Valley founders, take a lot of VC capital, but Jesse kind of did this all on his own, which I really, really admire him for that. And he also has those original cypherpunk values of being more libertarian. And that really resonates with me. And so I couldn't have picked a better spot for my product to end up at.
Yeah, Jesse's just a fucking badass. Let's be honest.
I think that's the TLDR.
Yeah. Everything he did where he was like standing up to New York and Ben Lawsky's absolute bullshit. It was a good thing.
The way that I put it is that Jesse is principled.
Yeah.
And I think we see that inside the company and externally.
It's funny. When I watch him tweet, I'm like, God, I need to behave more like that. I need to be more responsible, grown up, just come in and cut like a knife.
Yeah, he's got a great perspective on the space. I think, being in the trenches so early teaches you a lot of things. And I think that's a quality that he likes to see in others. And I think that's also why we were a good fit for Kraken and Jesse, was that Clark Moody and I have both been in this space for a long time. And we've gone through some of the same struggles that he has, not the same exact ones, but they kind of rhymed. We've gone through a lot of peak to troughs.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced it myself, dude. You know what? I had a lovely bull run in 2017 and then lost most of it. Got to a point where I was like, I honestly didn't know what I was going to do with my life. Like, I had the podcast. It wasn't making any money, and my little investment portfolio was dying. That's taught me a lot. You know what?
What was your peak to trough again? It was a pretty intense one.
Yeah, it may have been like 1.2 million to... I'm not going to say how low it went, but it got like pretty ropey, pretty scary. But It taught me a lot. Actually, it taught me a lot about saving and the value of money as well. And one of the best things of going Bitcoin only is that ever since then, my Bitcoin stack has only grown. Right, it's only gone up because I follow the stack sats. Every month I acquire more Bitcoin than I let go. I'm very conscious about not letting go of Bitcoin. When I do, it has to be the right decision. I convert part of my invoice bills into Bitcoin. I'm really conscious about that now.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people in our Keynesian Keynesian inflationary environment, we're not taught to save. And we see this reflected in consumer credit, whether it be auto, credit cards, or student loans. And Bitcoin kind of forces you to think about saving. And it teaches you how to save through the most tumultuous waters out there. Because hodling Bitcoin through massive price appreciation and huge decreases in value teaches you to really believe in an asset and to really stick to your guns in terms of, let's say you buy a piece of real estate when you get older, and that piece of real estate immediately loses 20% of its value. Well, if you're a Bitcoiner, they're like, hey, I've lost 20% in a day before.
Yeah.
Losing 20% in a year is nothing.
Yeah, it does. You're absolutely right. I mean, I reckon amongst a lot of my friends, most of them are they're living month to month, right? Most people are, everywhere you speak, but people are living month to month. You know what you earn, so you start with your house or your rent or your mortgage, and then you add a car, and then you add your bills, and what have I got left? All right, that's my clothing, holiday, and everything. Very few people save. Most people, if they lost their job, if they don't get a job within a month or 2 months, they're pretty fucked.
In my age group spends all their money on avocado toast. So
Yeah.
we don't have a lot left after that.
$13 avocado toast. Or, when I was staying in San Francisco recently, I wanted to get some dry cleaning done, and it killed me. It was $8 for a pair of boxer shorts. I was like, I can buy new shorts for that.
Yeah, you might as well just keep buying new ones.
Yeah. Whereas in Vietnam, I tweeted about this. I did a week and a half of washing of my son, and my kids. We're talking about a whole big sack of clothes. That was, I think it was $12 or something. It was all came fresh, clean, and pressed.
It's a strategy that a lot of Bitcoiners do, which is during the trough cycles, they go hang out in Vietnam or Thailand and just live really cheaply for a while.
Hey, those early days, though, you talk about that. I've heard about these early days. Charlie Lee told me about them. How was it different? Because obviously it wasn't like this global currency that everyone was using. We didn't have derivatives. We didn't have fidelities. It was a grassroots thing, right? It was just this idea that a lot of people would have seen and said, yeah, whatever, and laughed it off. And
most did.
Most did. But there's I did in 2013. I laughed it off. I bought some to buy some products online and bought and traded, and then forgot about it until 2016. I thought it was nonsense. But that core group of you believed in something. What was it like?
Yeah, it was a really tight-knit group of, I think, believers is the best way to put it. Not just enthusiasts, but believers. I was one of the first non-technical people to be into it. I'm sure there's many others across the world, but in San Francisco, I was one of the first non-engineers or, non-Wall Street sort of guys to really dive in and be like, oh, this is interesting. And I think in that time it was very heavily engineer focused because a lot of people said, how can I trust this? And engineers at least could go look at the code if they wanted to. They could play around with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, my first wallet was the Bitcoin Cutie wallet, which I don't know if any of you all listening to this have interacted with that wallet, but it's the core developer wallet that is provided to consumers. And the interface is pretty damn terrible. I love the core devs out there, but they're not UX designers. So, you had to overcome huge amounts of friction back in the day, having to wire money to Mt. Gox. I didn't have a lot of disposable income. I was a few years out of college. So wiring money to Japan, taking a couple days to get there. And then I didn't know what an order book was. So going and placing an order on an order book, I'm like, what's a market versus limit order? This is back in 2012. And then I'm like, okay, so on chain, what does confirmed or unconfirmed mean? And then I'm like, private keys, what are those? And so there was the only data or research or user guides back then were on Bitcoin Talk. So the Bitcoin subreddit really wasn't popular back in 12. It was the Bitcoin Talk forums. And later in 13, the subreddit became popular, and then CoinDesk was created in 2013. I created one of the first newsfeed aggregators in 2013. And that's where I actually read almost every single mainstream article that was published and was, really keen on finding new blogs that were popping up in this space.
Right, okay. So it's funny you should talk about that UX thing, because that's what I want to talk to you about today. You know what, good starting point. Let's talk about nodes. Okay, let's talk about nodes. Are you running a node, Dan?
I've got my Casa node.
Did you have a node before that?
I did not.
Wow, so that's a confession. So you've been in the space since 2011, and your first node was a Casa node.
I'm somewhat of a controversial Bitcoiner. I prioritize user experience more than almost anything else.
All right, but let's get into this. Okay, so why had you never set up a node until that point?
Well, to be frank, there's not much of an economic incentive for people to set up a node.
But you're meant to be a good Bitcoiner.
A good Bitcoiner would, yes.
Yeah.
But I think the hardware device, like the Casa node, indicates an inflection point in the space where, we're still humans at the end of the day. We like to feel things that are in the real world that we can touch. We have to trust in mathematics, we have to trust in things, but when we can touch them, it makes it a little bit more real. And I think the Casa node was nice because it prioritized user experience for setting up a full node. And I had a fantastic time setting it up. I mean, certainly there was still some hurdles, but it was pretty easy, kind of a plug and go sort of thing, or plug and play. And, I think Jeremy's vision for the product is that this is kind of the hardware device to enable you to be sovereign.
It's the cypherpunk box.
It's a cypherpunk box.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really cool.
Yes, cool as fuck.
Yeah, when you combine a hardware node with many other things, I think that really unlocks its value in an awesome way.
All right, well, let's talk about what happened with me specifically, because I was talking to a dude, I can't remember his name, on Twitter. We were having a conversation about it, and I was like, look, I've never actually set my node up. So I downloaded Core, and I synced the blockchain, and then I never really did anything with it, and then my daughter needed a laptop, so I wiped it and gave her the laptop, right? And then my Casa node came, and it just sat there on my shelf. I didn't do anything with it. And then I said to this guy, I just never really got around to it. I said, you know what? I'm going to be honest about this. I'm just going to go out there and be transparent about it. And I've been trolled relentlessly for it. Like, called an idiot, you're this, you're that, blah, 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 which is fine. I can take it on the chin.
Yeah.
What I will say is there are definitely more people who are now operating nodes now than before when I did it because of talking about it and doing a show about it. Okay. And I'm not an idiot. Like, creating a node isn't hard.
No,
Like,
you're a sharp guy. You're a sharp guy.
Hey, you
Setting
can
up
do
a
it.
node, it seems daunting.
Yeah.
They've got this like 30-step process, and Casa node really shrunk that down, made it real, made it more tangible. And if we look at any early technology, there's usually like this litany of steps that you'd have to do to use the first iteration of the product. And so, I think these are easily obfuscated sort of friction moments to get a node set up to where in the future it should be pretty easy. I mean, so easy that your mom can do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like switching on. It'd be like switching on a computer. It'd be installing. It'd be like switching on a phone. It would just work. But the point I'm trying to get to is that there's almost this... Like, I'm a marketing guy, as you know. I've worked in advertising for 20 years. I'm a UX guy. I did 4 years UX design. Like, design, marketing, UX are really important to me. But in approaching it, sometimes it feels like it's like a little bit scary for some Bitcoiners. Like, take your marketing bullshit, take your UX, go away. This is like a grassroots movement. This is cypherpunk. We don't need this. We don't need a beautiful interface. But also, those same people, I expect they want Bitcoin to moon, right?
Right.
If we want to take Bitcoin from millions to tens of millions of people, everything has to get a bit easier. Everything has to get a bit easier to use. We've got to look at design in UX. And look, Casa are doing this. BlockFi are doing it. But not many are.
I mean, back in 2014, I said some pretty controversial stuff that kind of stirred up the community.
Ooh, what did you say?
I said we shouldn't teach people how Bitcoin works. We should teach them what buttons to press. And that, back in 2014, was an egregious breach of Bitcoin standards.
Well, it might be now.
I think so too. I think a lot of Bitcoiners want people to understand how the core protocol works and the incentive models, but just 99% of people aren't going to get there. I've written a series of articles trying to reduce the gap. It took me 7 years to understand the space as I do now. And I started writing because I felt like I had an obligation to make that ladder a little bit shorter for everyone else. But it's still not a very short ladder. And at a minimum, we're talking months. And we're talking months of research or keeping your mind open enough to ingest this new information to change it. So yeah, I mean, I think we should build interfaces that are intuitive and that delight. And this is classic Silicon Valley product thinking, and I think we can port that to Bitcoin in a healthy way. I'm also somewhat controversial in my feelings around private key management.
Okay.
If the risk of you losing your private key is higher than someone stealing it, then maybe you shouldn't manage your own private key, aka grandma. Grandma should probably not manage her private key now. Now we have an obligation to go build better interfaces to where she could someday. But it is still very hard to manage a private key.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm going to tell you something controversial. I purposely don't go and study Bitcoin in absolute detail. Okay, I purposely don't put myself in a position where I understand everything maybe to a level you will on incentive models, and I don't do it on a tech level. And the reason I do that is I've always wanted this show to be for beginners or people who don't have much time, and I want to be confused. Like, I want to look at something and go, I don't know how that works. Or I want to look at something and go, why are we doing that? So I can question it and create content that helps people understand. Like, because, you know, if you understand everything, you bypass that. You get into deeper conversations about Bitcoin. Stefan does that brilliantly already. Marty and Matt do that already. I want to look at things and go, I don't understand that. So, for example, look, I know the node comes with a wallet, right? But trying to think in terms of UX, I was like, is a node a wallet? Does a node have a wallet? Like, what does this mean? Should I use that wallet instead of my hardware wallet? If so, is there any OPSEC issues with someone coming into my house and then seeing or knowing the fact that I've got a node? Is all my Bitcoin on that node? Can I have multi-sig with that node?
Totally.
Like that's what I'm trying. I want to ask those questions, but I'm not going to ask those questions objectively if I know everything.
Right. You know, I think UX has been like woefully undervalued in this space. I'm pretty close with Dan Elitzer, the head of the blockchain research done over at IDEO. And Dan is pretty phenomenal. I don't know if listeners here know what IDEO is, but IDEO is like the premier design consultancy. And so Dan, a couple of years ago, you know, him and I have stayed in touch since we first met a few years ago. He actually introduced me to my co-founder, Matt Galligan.
Okay.
And Dan and I put together a working group that only existed for a brief period of time, but it included the head of design at a few very major crypto companies that I'd like to keep private for their confidentiality. But we came together to work on design standards. For example, what does a confirmed versus an unconfirmed transaction mean to a layman? I mean, unconfirmed is a scary word. Like, wait, so did it not work at all?
Yep.
Propagating might be a better way to put it, or waiting for confirmation. And then, one confirmation, two confirmation. Is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? Is that which one is a proper rate?
It's already too much. That's already too much.
Yeah,
for most people.
that's already going to blow most people's minds in terms of what they're capable of comprehending.
In some ways, it's almost like, is this a cleared payment or uncleared?
That's what the consumer wants to know.
Yeah.
That's what the layman wants to know is, did it work?
But Dan, if you want to be a self-sovereign individual, you've got to go down the rabbit hole. You have to learn all this. That's what I got told. I got told anyone can figure out how to set up a node just by going on Google. And I think they missed the point. If you want maximum throughput, stop thinking, can people? How do you make more people?
And I get their perspective, which is that if you don't want to go through the minimal amount of friction to go set up a node or learn how wallets work, then maybe you shouldn't own Bitcoin.
You don't deserve Bitcoin.
Yeah, like kind of like that. I kind of disagree with that.
I do.
I think we don't have that threshold for anything else that we use in life. So there's no reason why. I think there's so much more complexity in the world that we could probably halt innovation right now. No new technology could be developed, and we would only just build better interfaces, and we would probably have our work cut out for us for 100 years.
Yeah, we've got enough cool shit now, right? Like, what are you missing that you need?
Well, I'm still waiting for like my jetpack and my teleporter and
your meal pill.
My meal pill.
Moon base.
I'm going to be cryo preserved when I die,
Oh,
so
yeah.
we got to get that technology a little bit better.
But that's the point, though. Like, Dan, people often say Bitcoin is the best form of money we've ever had, and it's not going to be the best form of money if most people can't use it, if they don't understand it. Like, it might be the hardest. I buy the hardest, but it's not going to be the best if people just choose not to use it because they find it too difficult or they don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin was made as an antidote to bad central banking policy.
Yeah.
And so we have, I think, a moral objective as Bitcoiners to make it as easy as possible. And we're not there to play education police and, force people to learn about it if they don't want to. We should encourage them to at every step. We should reduce the friction in the interfaces. We should build the best educational resources out there for them, and just hope that they like it and hope that they read it.
All right. Well, let's start with UX. Let's cover UX. We'll do marketing. We'll do design. We'll do them all separately. We'll talk about growth and like growth marketing as well. We'll talk about. And I love the term growth marketing because it triggers people. They think it's some kind of evil shit. I actually wrote about marketing because I think there's good and bad marketing, right? And there is moral and unethical marketing.
Sure.
But
I think
marketing itself isn't bad.
Everything's on a spectrum. There's no black and white.
Marketing's useful. as long as you're not misleading people and lying to people, marketing is actually useful for putting products in front of people.
And I think people forget that, before performance marketing, where you could really track like an ad through different applications and you could track someone's, behavior on other apps and customize those ads for them. You were inundated with non-relevant ads all the time.
Yep.
Just billboards on billboards and newspapers with ads that were made for the entire population. And now the ads are much more tailored to you, which means that, in a perfect world where ads work as they should, you're told what you want before you want it. And is that such a bad thing?
It's like Minority Report.
A little bit, but maybe you really do need that item. I'm a big fan of saving, obviously. Being a Bitcoiner for this long, it takes a lot of discipline to save, and I think saving's admirable, but we are human after all. We do have to consume eventually. And consuming means we have to buy things. And it would be nice if we didn't have to spend 10 hours researching what the best pillowcase is, and instead we're surfaced an option that's a pretty damn good option.
Well, look, we're going off on a tangent here. So, and I've got interesting views on advertising. I think right now, we've peaked now in terms of the opportunities for advertisers to direct the perfect ads to people, to actually serve them the most perfect ads. It's actually going to go backwards again now because we're going into the world of better forms of privacy. I had Daniel Buckner from Microsoft on to talk about private identities. We've got Apple bringing out their privacy option for logins.
They have a huge billboard in downtown LA that talks about privacy. It's an entire building.
Wow. Well, look, so these companies are going to be losing access to data. Google are going to lose access to data.
Yep.
Facebook are going to lose access to data. So we've peaked now. So we're coming backwards. I personally never had a problem with ads being targeted to me based on things I've searched for or based on things I've said on Facebook. It doesn't bother me. What I do have a problem is having Siri listen to me or my emails read to target ads to me because I don't want people accessing things which are private.
Life is always about expectations, and I think our expectations were that sort of thing wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And then when we found out it was, we were like, oh my God, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And so I think, given that I'm a libertarian, so if you opt into something and it's explicit and you really understand what you opt into, then that's fine. If people are kind of being manipulative and tricking you, then that's not okay. Kind of like Bitcoin.com with them intentionally misleading noobs to buy Bitcoin Cash.
Yes, of course.
That's definitely unethical.
Yeah. Fuck you, Roger.
I believe in doing good business, and good business means you're not trying to trick someone.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. And one of the funny things was there's that guy, forget his name, Green.
Matthew Green?
Matthew Green.
Yeah,
he wrote a really interesting article about Google Chrome when it was integrating directly with your mobile version of Chrome and the data it was storing.
Oh, yeah, they were syncing.
Yeah, and I was like, this is terrible. I ended up doing a show with Lop about OPSEC, and I was like, you know what, I need to sort this out. I need to sort my privacy out. So I deleted Chrome, I deleted all my data on Google, I switched off my location services, and then I ended up being in San Francisco, and having no location services on your Google search is actually annoying. I want you to know where I am, because as I'm searching, I want you to know I'm in San Francisco. So in some ways, privacy actually needs usability. I want to be able to have a menu of things that you can have
Certainly
to make my life easier. You can know my location because that's useful. You can't tell anyone else my location.
And Apple has geared a lot of their marketing around privacy now, which is really interesting because Apple is one of the most legendary brands in human history.
Yep.
And they have some of the most genius people working on that brand. So for them to switch their narrative to privacy is big. It means that they must have done a ton of research and really dug in deep on what matters to people. And now that they're advertising privacy, I feel really good about that, because before their marketing wasn't around privacy, it was more of just like iPhone as a lifestyle. But privacy, making that kind of like their big go-to as this is who we are, is really encouraging.
Well, you think about these big Silicon Valley behemoths. Let's say Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. Okay, what is the downside to Facebook offering much higher levels of privacy? They're going to have less data to sell ads.
They're going to have like an 80% drop in their revenue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's the downside for Google?
Same thing.
What's the downside for Apple?
Not much of a downside.
I can't even spot the downside.
It's a good differentiation for Apple too.
Yeah, so there's no real downside because their revenue is based on e-commerce sales and hardware sales, right? So I guess they use a bit of data within like the App Store, but I mean, not a lot. There's no real downside, but look at the upside. So I talked to...
And I wouldn't know about the App Store. I mean, I wouldn't say that definitively around the App Store, because I used to do App Store optimization at Uber, and I used to have to work with the App Store team directly. And let's say it's probably more private than you think, because we had a hard time getting some data that we needed to best target our users. For example, like landing page optimization. So when you land on an App Store page, that page is configured based on your device localization settings and your address and your lat long. And so we struggled with Apple to get enough information to enable us to craft the right messaging on those pages for our users. So I don't think they have as much data as you think.
But they do have this upside. And I had Fluffy Pony Ricardo on my podcast
Fluffy's
a long time
awesome.
ago. Yeah. I wanted to do a show about Monero. And so we had a long chat about privacy. And he was very right in that show. He said to me, this will be led by a company. Companies will do this. A massive company like Apple will put privacy at the front of their business, and that's where it will make a difference. Because look, I can do a show with Lop, we can talk about privacy, and you know what? A handful of people might go and change some of their settings, remove a browser. But with someone like Apple doing it, they're actually going to make it mainstream.
You have to build it in. It can't be something that you can maybe make it explicitly opt-in, but you really have to build it into the hardware. For example, I always use this as kind of an estimate of how many people really care about privacy is, are you running a VPN on your mobile device?
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I have one. I have one.
I know. Yeah, you have one. Do you run it all the time?
No, I don't. And do you know what? I don't know why. But I had one for a strange reason. So I've got Sky Sports, which is like HBO.
So content restrictions.
Yeah. So when I come out to the US, I can't bloody watch the football on it.
Even though you've already paid for it.
They won't let me because I'm out here.
It's content gated.
So I used to have a VPN. It doesn't even work with a VPN now anyway. So that's the only reason I've got it. I don't even know why I should have a VPN. And this is the problem. Most people, they're working hard. They're busting their hours. They might have kids. They've got very little free time. Most people don't have the skills all the time to get to this level of privacy.
It's the same thing where, like, if you have an issue with your car, you're going to go to a mechanic, not read 100 pages of manuals and then do it yourself.
No, but there's like that odd one guy with. There's like a Lop mechanic who's in his car and he's tuning it.
It's the specialization of labor.
Yeah.
We aren't experts in everything, so we rely on others to tell us what to do, or we rely on them to build products where it's baked in.
You can summarize all of this by saying UX sells, right? There's a reason why people invest in UX. There's a reason why, and by the way, everybody who says an Android is better than an iPhone is a liar. They're just a liar, and I don't believe them, and they need to, 3 or 4 times I've tried to use an Android. I'm like, this is hard. Why? What? Why? Oh, did you go to Android?
No, I'm on iPhone. I've had an iPhone since the iPhone 3G.
Right, okay. Have you tried to play with an Android?
Yeah, I've got an Nexus 5.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's all right. It's just not as snappy. I don't know if we're going to want to anger all of your Android listeners but certainly Apple over-indexes on user experience.
But they changed the game with mobile phones, right? I can't remember the phone I had before I had an iPhone. I had
a flip phone. It had like a color screen, and I could like browse the internet with it.
Do you remember your first phone?
I do. Yeah, it was a Sprint.
I had a Motorola StarTAC.
What is that?
It's like it was a flip phone, right?
Okay.
I tell you how shit the UX on that was. Like, there was no games. This is pre-games. When you wanted to send a text message, you couldn't select somebody from the address book. So you had to go in and get the number from the address book, write it down. So back then, I knew all my friends' phone numbers, all my best friends, because I kept doing it over and over again.
Yeah.
But
back when we actually remembered phone numbers.
Yeah, you did. You remembered phone numbers. And now, I think the phone I had before my first iPhone had a Sony Ericsson was it P900 or P1000? I can't remember what it was. And then whatever it was, when Apple first announced they were doing a phone, it was kind of exciting. And they just changed the game because of UX.
Well, let's see. I don't really wash my clothes by hand for fun. I use a washing machine and I use a dryer. There are these kind of monumental leaps forward in user experience to where I'm never going back. I'm not going back to a flip phone.
Nope.
I'm not going back to washing my clothes by hand.
Nope.
And, I think we need to be empathetic towards the average person and build things for them because they're ultimately the user of Bitcoin.
So brilliantly done. I was thinking I've got to bring this back to Bitcoin. You've done it for me. So bringing it back to Bitcoin, is there any risk by making it too easy that we take away some of the security benefits?
Well, so when I worked at blockchain.com, I was the first product manager at blockchain. We thought about how do we educate people around private key management. I mean, we even thought about skull and crossbones. Like, if you lose this, like, it's death for your Bitcoin. This is a serious issue. Private key management, and that's where I have that controversial stance on it, is because I worked at blockchain.com and saw so many people not ready to be their own bank.
Yeah.
Certainly some people are, and I like that messaging, but we should remove my own personal feelings towards what people should do and look at what they will do. And a lot of them will forget their password.
But can you simplify private key management? In the end, does it have to be a set of words that's going to be written down in 3 places?
I'm really bullish on multi-sig.
Okay.
Now, not 2 out of 3. I think that's really risky, but more 3 out of 5 or larger key sets to where you could have many, many signatures. There you have a good balance between trust minimization and also user experience and making sure you don't have a sort of catastrophic key failure event.
Well, so I tell you my problem with multi-sig. I don't actually fundamentally have a problem with multi-sig. Okay, this is going to be my next confession where I'm going to get another battering. I've never used multi-sig, by the way. I've never.
Oh,
used
interesting.
It. Yeah, and it's that was my next thing I'm going to do. Like I've got all these things that I've not done that I should have done, so I'll get savaged for weeks, and the B caches will be savage me on Reddit. But
the RBTC is pretty funny to go to.
Oh,
I think you and I pop up over there quite a few times.
I just go in there and troll them. They're like, who listens to this moron? I'm like, yeah, who listens to this moron? Like, why are you listening to me? They're like, he's not technical. I'm like, yeah, I'm not technical, but
did they come up with a conspiracy theory that you're an alien now?
No, the conspiracy theory is that I am paid off by Blockstream.
Blockstream, Core, Bilderberg.
Yeah. And I actually tried to get Blockstream to become a sponsor, and they were like, no, they wouldn't do it. But now I just like when they troll me, I'm like, I'm just doing it for my Blockstream checks.
Nice.
But the point being is that the thing about multi-sig is, for me, multi-sig is for the Bitcoin rich. So if we go into the world of, imagine we go into the world of hyper-Bitcoinization, we still might have people living month to month on their Bitcoin. I don't think they need multi-sig.
Yeah, I think there's an old concept in this space as well that you would have your checking account and your savings account. In hyper-Bitcoinization, where Bitcoin is the unit of account, you'll do the same thing. So maybe your savings account is a nice, strong multi-sig setup, whereas your checking account is this hot wallet on your phone with like $200. You certainly don't want to walk around in person with $100,000 in cash. Similarly, you wouldn't want to do the same with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But you can easily go to an ATM and do other authentication measures to then withdraw more money. Or you have certain credit lines open like credit cards. I think we'll see some of that still remain in hyper-Bitcoinization. Bitcoin fundamentally changes everything about money, or the core store value, essentially that money that is the glue between everything in the economy.
So I guess what you're saying is it's almost like a checking account and a savings account, right?
Yeah.
And in some ways, there are like forms of security in place for your bank account. So I have it like over here. If I spent $3,000 on my card, if I try to buy something, it's not going to go through.
That's right.
And I get a text message come through or something, or I get a call. And
anti-fraud measures.
Yeah, anti-fraud measures. So essentially, multi-sig is kind of like your anti-fraud measure, right?
Sure, you can build in velocity.
All right, okay.
To where like maybe one key doesn't sign if there's a weird velocity. So velocity means like the percentage of coins moving relative to the rest.
Yeah.
Like 100% draining of the wallet. It's going to be like, well, I don't know. This seems a little fishy.
Yeah. Are you sure you want to do that, dude?
The user probably would be happy with you flagging it versus letting it go through, because maybe they have to jump over a few more hurdles to make that happen. But I assume if they're going to move that much money, but the program essentially assumes if they're moving that much money, they're fine with the additional friction.
Next up, I talked to Dan more about Bitcoin UX, but before that, I do have a message from my amazing sponsors. So firstly, let's talk about Kraken, the mighty Kraken, the most trusted place to buy and sell Bitcoin. While I'm up here in Wyoming, I'm going to be catching up with Jesse. Also, Nick Pacoco's here, going to be catching up with them and the rest of the Kraken team. Going to be finding out what other cool stuff is coming soon. And listen, we know they crush security. We know they're amazing at that. But they also have the most comprehensive set of tools for traders out there. Firstly, they've got Kraken.com, the best place to buy, sell, and trade digital currencies. They offer margin trading with up to 5x leverage. They've got futures, they've got indices, They've got the Kraken OTC desk for large trades with private and personalized services. They've also got Crypto Watch, where you can trade on multiple exchanges from a single platform. And for you advanced, badass traders out there, they've got the best account management service you could possibly ask for. There really is no better place to trade Bitcoin. So join me in supporting Kraken. Head over to kraken.com, which is KRAKEN.com. And lastly, but not least today, my show is brought to you by my good friends over at BlockFi. And they've had a whole bunch of cool new updates recently. With their interest accounts, which I am a customer of, they've dropped minimum deposits. Clients will no longer have to meet a minimum deposit amount in either their Bitcoin, Ether, or GUSD balances in order to earn interest. Also, BlockFi has removed the early withdrawal penalty from their account and is now offering 1 free withdrawal per month for all clients. Add to that their recent announcement of BlockFi Flex, where you can choose to receive your interest payment in the currency of your choice. And also, they've got a special offer. Yes, if you sign up for an interest account this month before September the 30th, 2019, they're going to hit you up with $10 of free Bitcoin. So if you're interested in trying this out, I always recommend doing your research, but then head over to blockfi.com, which is BLOCKFI.com. All right, well, listen, look, if we're trying to consider a world where there are more Bitcoiners, we want it to moon, of course, but we want tens of millions of people coming in, right? Hundreds of millions. Like, we want Bitcoin to grow, right? Not just for our personal wealth, because we want to get rid of the central banks and change all the bullshit that we talk about over and over. But if we want to get tens, if not hundreds of millions of people in, what do you think are the biggest UX challenges that need to be dealt with?
Private key management.
So that's one.
And private key management is the most critical, fundamental, I think, misunderstood part for newbies. It takes a long time to understand what a private key is. You know, we come up with analogies like keys and vaults or safes, but it's kind of tricky to really build education around that to enable people to grok what's going on. And I think not a lot of people are used to the circumstance of, oh, I lose my password, I lose all my money. You know, that's where we joked around, like, we were semi-serious / joked around at blockchain, putting like a skull and crossbones over, like, if you do this, it's gone. So private key management is fundamental, because from there, I mean, with that Bitcoin private key, you can sign other things as well. That's kind of your base layer for like being a sovereign individual, is managing your private key correctly. From there, you know, I guess you could say maybe before that is awareness. So user experience around just building great educational tools. That's why I started writing, as I felt like I had an obligation. And when I first got into Bitcoin, there's just Bitcoin talk. Now we've got awesome Medium articles. We have videos. There's a ton of YouTubers. There's podcasters. I don't even think podcasting was a thing when I got into Bitcoin in 2012. Or was it?
Maybe. Maybe. I can't
there was like talk show radio, like Howard Stern and stuff. But
like, even with that, you know, brand new person, say my friend Justin here, right, he knows about Bitcoin, but just say he doesn't. We have a conversation with him afterwards. We say, explain to him, like, Bitcoin is this new money. You should hedge yourself. You should buy a bit. You know, go on Kraken, buy $100, $500 worth, and put it away. It's like, cool. It's like, well, yeah, but what you need to do is you need to understand private keys. He's going to say, well, what are private keys? Well, then you're going to have to start explaining what private keys are, what public keys are, what happens if you lose them, where you need to keep them. Like, these are big steps. Do you think there's any way to even abstract away, or do you think by abstracting away private keys, you are decreasing security?
That's a great question. I certainly think it's more of a spectrum, to where you lose some of that sovereign individual spirit, the easier you make it to a certain point. You know, like, people get too comfortable storing their coins on Coinbase. You know, if that happens, then, and every day that Coinbase doesn't have a hack, people get more and more comfortable, and that leads to a bad situation. And I think that's why a lot of Bitcoiners are so vehemently against trusting someone else with your private keys, is they've seen all these other exchanges fail. Well, so have I, but I wasn't stupid enough to fucking leave money on Mt. Gox.
Yeah.
So I actually worked with Wired and Wall Street Journal on this, which they didn't publish until it was too late. But I still have the old emails from it, to where I calculated the spread between Gox and Bitstamp, and the only way to explain the spread was the going concern risk combined with their banking issues, because you couldn't withdraw fiat unless you had a Japanese bank account. Despite no matter how much I screamed about it 6 months before it happened, they didn't publish it. And then later, we all found out they did have issues, and it was pretty transparently obvious to me. So I didn't have any money in Gox. I didn't invest any money into investment schemes. Yeah, I mean, I dabbled in a couple other currencies just to play around with, but I largely avoided getting wrecked from a hack or from malinvestment. And I don't think it took a genius to do that. It just took someone who had a due diligence mindset of just being practical about it. And now that we have companies like, I think we see this pushback as well with like BlockFi. I did a tweet storm, which
you got some shit for that.
I got a lot of shit for that.
Do you know what? It's funny. I don't have a problem with BlockFi. I've done my research. I know some people do and some people don't. It's like it polarizes people, right?
Yeah.
Some people are like, this is the future. This is financial services. You're selling risk. It's cool. Others are like, this is encouraging people to not manage their private keys.
Yeah. A lot of people are worried in very justifiable reasons why they're worried.
Yeah,
too.
I agree. But
it's risky.
Of course. But financial services sell risk. But it was different for me than you. I knew if I could have put out my referral code, right?
Right.
As part of my ads. I can't cross that line as an advertiser, as somebody who's reading sponsorship ads. But I know if I'd have done it, that I would have made a shitload of referrals. But I didn't.
Sure.
But you did, and I
did.
You should explain yourself because you're welcome to do that.
Yeah. Well, I've known the BlockFi guys for quite some time now. I think lending and borrowing is a critical market function that will always exist, whether or not we're in hyper-Bitcoinization or not. And I spent some time researching it, and I thought it was a really cool way to earn incremental return on your Bitcoin. Now, I wrote up a tweet storm about it and shared my referral code, which what I did there was a couple different things that I felt was the only ethical way that I could shill something. So I've only shilled a few products. One is Kraken, because obviously I love Kraken, BlockFi, Lolly, and Pay. And they're only things that I use and or work at and or really, really, really like the leaders and what they're building. But as well, with BlockFi, I wanted to take an extra step to show that I wasn't just shilling to shill, that I actually believed in it. So I put 10 Bitcoin on it.
Wow.
For a minimum of a year. So I'll probably leave it there for longer. But I'm not sure of many other influencers in this space who are willing to risk $100,000 because they believe in something so much. So I put $100,000 down. When I wrote up my tweet storm, there's 3 times in all caps where I say, this is risky. I don't really push people that hard. I go, basically, this is my journey. If you want to join that journey, cool. If not, you don't have to. And as well, I sacrificed my own referral fee for about a year and gave that to people that use the promo code.
Yeah, I put 20% of my Bitcoin in.
20%, that's a lot.
Yeah, but like that was the risk I was willing to take. I was like, I looked at it and I was like, okay, I'm willing to risk 20%. If I lost that, obviously it'd be devastating. But, I did my own research. Like, I got to know Zach. Okay, I've got to know Zach very well. This isn't BitConnect. This is a guy who's not going to suddenly run off one day with your Bitcoin and go and live in Panama.
And that's a good distinction because I think people still have Bitcoiners especially have PTSD from Havelock investments and all these old Neo and B. These are old scams, and so I think people still have that PTSD. And so when legitimate companies come around, they're like, "Whoa, I don't know about this," which is good. You should have don't trust, verify sort of attitude. Mm-hmm. However, if you keep that attitude for perpetually, you're going to lose out on a lot of opportunities in the future. But I'm not telling you to depart from your Bitcoin. I'm just saying these are more legitimate companies than we've ever had before. There will be a continual development of more and more mature companies with better risk management systems and more qualified individuals to run them. So we shouldn't be afraid. We should be cautious.
All right. Well, listen, look, I'm working on my beginner's guide, right?
Yep.
By the way, I think it was because of you. Lesson 1 has actually changed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So originally, episode 1 was going to be, what is money?
Okay.
It's gone now. But they're staying in there. Actually, episode 1 is now...
That's my section, right? No, the monetary
policy.
No,
you're doing monetary policy. No, more like the way Szabo talks about what is money. But episode 1 is now, why Bitcoin?
Oh, nice.
Because didn't you tweet the other day and said, it's not... You said this is the first thing we need to tell people, why Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, actually, the way that I like to phrase it is it reminds me of a scene in Inception. And in Inception, you've got Leo DiCaprio trying to convince Tom Hardy to join his Inception team to incept this idea in this young, about to become a billionaire's mind that he should break up his father's empire once he inherits all that fortune. And so you've got Leo and Tom sitting there at a cafe, and Leo goes, "I've got a crazy idea. It's called Inception." And Tom goes, "Well, it's a bloody crazy idea, but yes, it's doable though." He goes, but you have to start with the most primitive version of the idea, which means that you don't start by incepting the idea in his head of breaking up his father's empire. You start with a relationship with his father. And so for Bitcoin, we don't start with why you should like Bitcoin. We should start with your relationship with your government. And once people start to question that, then Bitcoin becomes obvious. We must first tell them the problem before they find the solution.
Okay. Right. Well, we're going to go episode 1, why Bitcoin. We're then going to go, what is money? We're going to go into the origins of Bitcoin, the prehistory. But at some point, we've got to tell people to buy Bitcoin. And at that point, therefore, the time we're telling them to buy Bitcoin, we need to teach them, firstly, about private keys.
I wouldn't say that's the first thing you want to teach them, but you want to teach them kind of a binary approach to it, which is that, like, if you trust someone else, bad things could happen. If you manage your own, bad things could happen too. It's
Okay.
not.
Yep.
It just kind of be cognizant of it at first. There's depth to private key management. It's not like we expect you to be, etching your mnemonic and titanium day one.
Yeah.
Which is what I do, but
Well, to me, like, I think Stefan Rivera put it in like 4 steps, and he did it really well. It's like, you're going to buy your Bitcoin and it's going to be on the exchange.
oh yeah,
Okay.
Stefan tweeted about this,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And the next step is then to get them to have a hardware wallet. And then I can't remember what step 3 or 4 is, but having a node was in there as well. And also having, I think, multisig was in there as well. But the point is, you've got to go through those steps. Okay.
Yeah, maybe everyone doesn't want to jump into the pool right away. Maybe they want to dip in their toes.
Yeah.
And so I think that approach is attractive to a lot of people.
Okay. But so we've covered private keys. Do you think people need to understand and learn about how the protocol works?
No.
No,
You should just know that X amount of confirmations is necessary.
that's it.
That's it.
But how many confirmations are necessary?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. So
And different coins, like,
Yeah.
when I went Bitcoin only, I went to sell all my shit coins. some of them were like needed like 200 confirmations.
which is a couple days sometimes. Yeah, a lot of people don't understand the nuance that there's no finality with proof of work. It's just kind of the accumulated proof of work since the transaction occurred that essentially indicate it's going to be cemented in that ledger it's highly likely to stay cemented. And so I don't think a lot of people understand that nuance. But I do think there's a practical level of confirmations, like 3 to 5 is what people would typically say is okay. It slides based on like the amount of value that you're sending. For most consumers, 1 to 2 is fine because they're not sending $100 million on chain. That's a very rare transaction. I don't think many people see $1 million in one time in their whole lifetime, right?
I did for a few days.
You did for a few days, yes.
Actually, it was 14 days.
And maybe when you buy your first house, but you technically don't really see that money. It's just
No.
you just use it. It's essentially you're given a loan and then it's immediately used to buy the house.
I tell you where I think there's another big UX problem is with Lightning, because you're almost learning, in some ways, another cryptocurrency. It's almost like Lightning is different from Bitcoin. Even though Lightning is Bitcoin, it is almost like different from Bitcoin as well. It's a different experience.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to bring up, which is that I also agree that Lightning UX is very, very hard. However, we should baseline our sort of perspective of what hard is to the mainstream consumer. So from a Bitcoiner or another person who transacts across layer 1, yes, Lightning seems harder than transacting on layer 1. But if we go all the way back to the consumer who's never transacted on layer 1 or layer 2, they're both equally pretty damn hard.
They are. I just find Lightning is like a next level hard because, one of the great things about Bitcoin is when you do your first send, right? So say I educate a friend, I'm like, you need to get into Bitcoin. They go on Kraken, they buy $500, and I say, also, you've got to buy a hardware wallet. And they go buy a Ledger or a Trezor, and I'm like, now transfer it. That process of pasting in the code and sending, it's a really amazing experience the first time you do it.
In the product world, they call it the make magic moment.
Yeah, and it is. Because the transaction, even though it's not confirmed, pops up straight away, almost immediately, right?
Yeah.
And you can see it there in your Ledger or your Trezor, and it's unconfirmed, but you see it. And I think that's a really cool experience. It's like, so basically the way to send Bitcoin is you give me an address, I paste it in, I put a set amount, I click submit, and it's gone. Great.
And I think that if we were to dig into that make magic moment, it's more around the permissionless.
Yeah.
There's no ID, there's no phone calls you have to make, there's no limits. It's whatever you want to do.
But with Lightning, it's a bit harder.
It is.
I mean, firstly, in most instances of Lightning, you have to create an invoice first.
Yeah, Lightning's a little tricky. I mean, the way that I look at it in the future is that layer 1 transaction fees will increase on Bitcoin, which will eliminate its usability for coffee payments, which it wasn't really made for. So I think that's fine. Essentially, Bitcoin was meant as this, easy to transfer store of value that is immensely powerful because it disrupts all other stores of value and it rips out money from the hands of governments, which is an altruistic thing. Just like that, we have the separation of church and state, we have the separation of church and money, or we will. Now, people are like, oh, well, if transaction fees are $100, I can't transact on layer 1 for my coffee, and they're right. And I like to use a quip, which is that gold is worth $8 trillion, but you can't spend it anywhere. Similarly,
Yeah.
Bitcoin layer 1 is kind of the same thing. Now, layer 2 unlocks a whole wide spectrum of use cases, which would be the kind of what some people would view as the kind of Bcasher side of using it for cheap payments, using it for the coffee or micropayments and such. And so I think most consumers will likely interact with Lightning through a custodial service that manage those channels of liquidity. So they're not going to really have to worry about invoices or channel openings or anything like that. And that will reduce on-chain volume by like 90%. Like imagine if two exchanges had a Lightning channel open between each other.
Yeah, no, I agree. But this is where we get into a tricky area in terms of my personal level of understanding, but also a tricky area in terms of how Bitcoin is this, quote unquote, how Bitcoin is this. So say transaction fees are $100 and say I want to load up $100 of Bitcoin sats on my Lightning wallet, right?
Yeah.
Can I do that in a non-custodial way?
No.
You can't. But isn't that potentially we're getting into a world, therefore, that's kind of a little bit anti what Bitcoin is?
Bitcoin's purpose was to remove the power of money from governments. And that is a enormously powerful thing because that changes the whole dynamic of between citizens and their government.
Can I challenge that? Not
Sure.
say is that right or wrong. How do we know that was the... We don't actually know. Like,
Sure.
I don't want to get into a world where I trigger Bcasher to go, yeah, look, Peter agrees with this or whatever. But it was also money.
Right. Satoshi wrote the white paper for the cypherpunks, and he published it on the cryptographer mailing list because he needed someone to come help him build it.
Okay.
Satoshi can't talk about sound money and Austrian economics to a bunch of engineers who couldn't give a shit less. That's why he phrased it in the terms of payments, which is privacy and finality, which is what the cypherpunks cared about. Adam Back has tweeted a lot about this, which is essentially what does cash mean in the terms of cypherpunks, and it doesn't mean cash in your pocket. It means finality, because cash is referred to as like a push payment. It's not a push and pull; it's a push. It's a one-way irreversible payment.
Okay, so if I'm buying my Lightning sats and it's a custodial service, is it still trustless?
It's trust minimized. Nothing
Okay.
is completely trustless.
Okay.
It's on a spectrum of trustless and trusted. And so it's as trust minimized as you need to be for that level of payment.
Right, so in this world, Bitcoin has taken out the central banks. We have a better either alternative or we have a separate financial system, which is Bitcoin powered, which is, we can trust it more. It's better money. It's harder
Right.
money, right? Okay, but in that system, we've got people who are fully, maybe got in early, maybe have a bunch of Bitcoin, they're self-sovereign, and then we have a bunch of people who just benefit from a better money, but
That's
they,
right.
they, in some ways, they're kind of like,
I'm talking like the poor rice farmer in Vietnam.
they're kind of like I don't know. They've got a different Bitcoin maybe from you and me, Dan, if we've got in early. They've got a different experience.
I'm not sure about early or not. It's more around their price elasticity to pay layer 1 transaction fees or their net worth.
Why will these people care about Bitcoin?
Well,
Or will they just not have an alternative?
they won't really have an alternative, and it's just sort of a new paradigm. It's like the gold standard. You don't have to like gold or not. It's just useful as it is. As I think Safe puts it, he's like, it doesn't have to be friendly. Like gunpowder is useful as gunpowder. No, there's not like this marketing campaign for the ethical consideration of gunpowder. It's just used as gunpowder. Same with Bitcoin.
Right, but these people aren't really in the not your keys, not your Bitcoin world because they've got a custodial service and they are just using their Lightning Bitcoin as a currency.
Well, yeah, I mean they're going to notice their tax rates dropping as it becomes harder and harder to collect taxes.
We hope.
I'm not advocating for people not to pay their taxes. I'm just saying that it will become harder.
I am.
It will become harder for agencies to collect that money since you can't just call 5 banks in the U.S. and seize 90% of the money, or essentially go be able to seize that in any fashion. With private keys distributed in a manner that are decentralized enough, if you have like multi-sig and maybe there's only one entity in Vietnam and there's 4 others across the world, then even if the Vietnamese government comes to that one Vietnam entity with one private key or one of the shards of that private key, then they're not able to seize that money.
So, okay. So
do they benefit from it is the question that you're asking. They do, because it forces their government to steal less of their life. It forces their government to be more altruistic and be more focused on their well-being. It kind of switches the pattern from governments using their military and their force and using that using that violence to extract value from their citizens.
Okay. To
where it reverses that. And now the citizens are like, wait, we don't have to do something unless we want to. So it reverses that cycle.
Okay, this is a very different Bitcoin world for different people, as I just said, though. But
sure.
We're probably going like 10, 20 years ahead. I guess for these people...
This is very, very far away from now.
Yeah, but I guess for these people, Lightning will just be another way of interacting with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin for them will just be a different currency from what they're using now. It's not going to be like you or I consider about investing for the future. It might not be saving. It just is the currency they might end up using.
They might open up an app and see Bitcoin balances and have no idea how it's being routed, which is how we interact with everything.
Yeah, which is cool.
Most people don't understand how their data packets are routed on their computer.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to pretend that I understand that whole stack.
Yeah, and we don't want people to do that. But right now, Lightning is hard. Lightning isn't in this place.
Right.
So we're in that place now with Lightning where I do think...
Custodial Lightning is easy.
Custodial Lightning is better, I would say.
Okay.
It's like I've got Blue Wallet.
Same.
Yeah. And I use Lightning very limited right now. I use it for 2 purposes. I get... People just tip me with tipping.
Yeah, we were both in Munich.
Yeah.
We used the Lightning beer thing.
God, I got savaged again with that. But no, so I use it for tips because I get tips for the podcast from it, from people who like what I do. And that's cool. And I withdraw to my Blue Wallet. It's instant. And I also use... Some people will pay for a subscription to the podcast with Lightning. I've had like 3 people do that. So I've got some experience. And I still think the experience is harder than base chain Bitcoin. I do. Agreed,
but we should always make that experience relative to not interacting with Bitcoin ever.
But the fact that certain people, yourself, myself, think the custodial version of Lightning is better than non-custodial, that triggers people and pisses them off. So, for example, Jack Malice, if he hears this, he's going to lose his shit with me. He's going
we're gonna have a lot of people hating on us.
Yeah, no, but they are going to, and in some ways, rightly so,
right?
Because there are valid arguments to say a custodial version of any form of Bitcoin is not as good as a non-custodial.
And I see it more as a spectrum.
Yeah,
and
I know.
And that's where we see a lot of people use centralized services because it's easier. Now, ultimately, we want to convert them into managing their own private key.
Yeah, no, of course. And I'm like, I've said to people, look, I would never have more than like $100, maybe $200 in a custodial Lightning wallet. I never would. And if I did go over that, I then would withdraw it out and put it into my base chain.
That's
blah, blah, blah.
I don't view that as that material of an issue. If we trust an entity with $100 per person, that's not that big of a deal.
Well, it might have to change though, Dan. So you said about say on-chain fees $100. If on-chain fees are $100 and you wanted to withdraw into Lightning and you had to open a new channel to do it, you're not going to withdraw $200 and pay a $100 on-chain fee. You're going to have to withdraw even $1,000. You're going to leave a 10%. We are in a tricky world here that I think some Bitcoiners haven't properly answered.
So I did model out transaction fees in a post-subsidy environment. So that's the environment in which in the block reward, there are no new coins minted.
Yeah.
And of course, I plugged in some assumptions, which you can download my sheet and plug in your own. But I don't think we see transaction fees really go over $100 in the future for a sustainable amount of time. This is over 100 years, by the way.
But the point I'm getting to is even if it was at $100, if you wanted to withdraw and you had to open up a channel, you're going to have an on-chain fee, right? There's potentially 2 fees.
To be frank, a large portion of the world won't be interacting on layer 1, but also their income and their GDP is minuscule compared to the rest of the world, so they're not necessarily material when it comes to the world economy, which sounds harsh, but it's the cold, harsh reality of it.
the point's still the same. Is like if you withdrawn $1,000, you wouldn't want to spend 10% on your fee. You want to spend 1%, then you've got to withdraw 10,000. You've got to have $10,000 in Lightning.
I mean, the price elasticity of a layer one transactor is very, very high. So we see people regularly paying wire fees of $30 to $100 in the US.
Of course.
We see people paying a lot of money for physical gold delivery, including $5 million by Bundesbank just to deliver their own gold.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's bananas.
Yeah.
You know, if we look at where a majority of the wealth in the world is stored, it's stored in large amounts. It's not stored in these tiny, tiny wallets of $50 to $100. So if that's protected by Bitcoin because people have stored their value into the Bitcoin ledger and they have to pay a higher transaction fee to move those large amounts of money, that's still a very good thing for Bitcoin and for the world. It's not going to support, you know, your average rice farmer in Vietnam. They're not going to be able to open up some of these channels because it's unaffordable. But also they're in the lowest income, you know, sort of tranche of the world. We can't build products that are usable and are directly serviceable for everyone in the world. Like not everyone in the world can enjoy an iPhone.
So you see that future world then whereby 90, 95, maybe 99% of people are interacting with Bitcoin on Lightning, and the few people who are going to be interacting with the base chain are the central banks, maybe the liquidity providers, and maybe the Bitcoin rich.
No, it'd be like any large payment you want to do. Like you want to buy a house? Or you use a layer one. You want to buy a car? Layer one. You want to do a transaction? Essentially, there's a trade-off because transaction fees in layer one are fixed, or they're based on they're based on bytes.
Right.
But that's fixed, so you can have any value, and it's the same amount of cost because it's cost per bytes, not cost per value. Lightning is cost per value. So when you transact on layer two, your transaction fee is based on how much money you're moving. So there's a natural organic trade-off between layer one and layer two where it'll just be a decision of like, do I transact on layer one versus layer two?
The funny thing is, talking about this, is that whilst I think Bcash is trash and I cannot stand the BSVers, I can see how people are sold on a different vision. It's very easy to see how they've heard a different vision, a different argument, gone, oh, that makes more sense. Like, I think we should be more empathetic to that.
Yeah, I do see why people have fallen for that narrative of cheap payments. But I was there with Roger when he tried to pitch those different restaurant owners. He pestered them. They were not wanting to use Bitcoin. He pestered them until they accepted it. We'd go back there a week later, they wouldn't be accepting it anymore.
Nobody uses it.
Roger's built his own illusion, his own world, his magical world, or a Bitcoin Cash, or his former version of Bitcoin was this payment mechanism. But if you looked at the data, if you looked at how many of the restaurants he went and pestered, I bet 99% still don't accept it.
Yeah.
So they don't, because while it's good for merchants, it's not good for consumers because it's harder to use, more expensive, which, by the way, expensive isn't just transaction fees. It's the volatility fee and the exchange fee that you pay, which has a nasty, nasty effect of scaling with the value of transaction because your transaction fee is fixed.
Yeah.
Now, your volatility fee, you know, if you have $100 and it moves 10%, it's a $10 fee. So if Bcash drops 10%, you're not only paying $10, you're also paying the transaction fee and the bips that you got charged on that exchange to buy it.
We've gone so rogue on this interview.
We've gone off on a bit of a tangent. Yeah.
Do you know what? It's the problem where, so I started doing more interviews now where I don't have questions. I just want to sit and talk to you. And the natural evolution of this is it's taken me to a place where these conversations go a bit rogue.
We're still under the UX umbrella.
I know, but dude, we've done like an hour. We want to go.
Really?
Look, we're in LA. We want to go and get a beer, right?
True.
But there's two things we haven't touched on, which I did want to touch on, and maybe we'll do another day. But like, I wanted to talk about design and marketing as well, because marketing is definitely my area. I understand marketing. I get it. And I'm a marketer at heart. I have no problem with marketing at all, as long as, like I said before to you, as long as you're not unethical, don't lie. I struggle when people call someone a shill when they're doing marketing. A shill for me is an unknown, an undeclared promotion, right?
Yeah.
But I think marketing is good and marketing is important. I always have said, and I've been shot down for this, but Bitcoin has benefited from marketing. It's benefited from word of mouth marketing, but it is still a form of marketing.
True.
People tell people. There is still an aversion to marketing in Bitcoin. People seem a little bit like, what are you doing? You know.
Well, maybe we should remind them that Satoshi understood marketing from its most fundamental level.
You're going to tell me about now. You've talked about this before. This is
Yeah.
the hype cycle, right? Is a marketing thing.
Yes, the volatility of Bitcoin is its number one, and the volatility is essentially a viral loop. It's the number one channel to acquire users. So what happens with Bitcoin is, due to the 21 million hard cap, so you've got a fixed amount of coins and you have variable demand. And during halvening events, you have a reduction in supply. Because of that, we have these cycles where we see the price appreciate 10x or 100x. And it's through those cycles to where that draws in more and more people. And Satoshi hypothesized this would happen. He said, as the price increases, more and more people buy in, which increases the awareness of the protocol. So Satoshi essentially saw that volatility would be a good thing for Bitcoin because more and more people would hear about it. And that's actually how I got in, right? Like I heard about it during the 2011 price bubble. I didn't get in until 2012. But I think you mentioned that 2013 was the first year that you became aware of it.
Yeah, but I, for a different reason, though, it was Silk Road.
And Silk Road was a good validation of protocol market fit, or a take on product market fit, which is that, well, I saw if governments can't shut down Silk Road very easily, then Bitcoin must be really robust. That's what made me interested in it.
Yeah, it wasn't the bull runs that brought me in, but I recognize what you're saying, because whenever the Bitcoin price starts shooting up, I get people getting in touch. Pete, Pete, is this the time to buy?
Is your old buddy from elementary school kind of pop up?
Yeah,
Okay.
Pete, you know Bitcoin. Is like, should I buy it?
Should I buy Ripple?
Yeah, what about this other Bitcoin? I
Right.
see there's 2 Bitcoins. But
Yeah.
I do get that. But is there something we as Bitcoiners can be doing that's better for Bitcoin in terms of marketing? Should we be open to marketing? Should we talk about it? Should we talk about it as a brand, or is it all this too dirty?
Well, what's kind of cool is when we all market it individually by word of mouth or the content that we write, whether that be on Twitter or Medium or podcast or YouTube series, we all essentially craft our own narrative. And if you craft that narrative in a fashion that's popular and brings in more adherence into Bitcoin, then you'll be financially rewarded for it from advertising revenue, such as you've done. And so
That pisses people off, though.
advertising is just a normal part of business. And I think you advertise great products.
Well, yeah, I have to be very careful about the ones I pick as well. I don't think some people realize the amount I turn down or the money I turn down. For every sponsor I work with, I've probably turned down 5 to 10.
Yeah, I think you've told me about a couple. And it's
and big numbers, there was
Yeah.
one wanted to do an interview on the show. And what was I can't remember whether it was 25 grand or 50 grand they offered
Wow.
me. And it was a long time ago. This was about a year ago. But it was a token-based project. And I was
gotcha.
I can't do this. One, it's an advertorial. Two, it's I never sell the shows.
It's very off-brand.
It's very off-brand, and I couldn't do it. But it's big money. But I do have to pick very carefully. Kraken, I picked very carefully. I know you can buy shitcoins on Kraken. You can buy that in most exchanges. But it wasn't Kraken coming to me. I spotted them and I went to them. I said to Jesse, "You're a Bitcoiner. I want to work with you." BlockFi, again, I've had their competitors want to work with me, but some of their competitors have got tokens. I don't want to work with them. I
Right.
wanted to work with BlockFi. If I went Bitcoin pure, I couldn't afford to do this the way it is. I couldn't travel. I couldn't do the interviews in person. I couldn't get the interviews I get. So, you have to be very, very careful.
Yeah, it's, so each individual Bitcoiner markets Bitcoin to all their friends and family, as you said before, word of mouth. And that's the best conversion mechanism because each individual, once they catch the Bitcoin bug, I think we've all been there, you can't get it out of your head. And then you go pester your parents and your siblings, and you're like, "Hey, I got to tell you about this thing. It's the good news of Bitcoin." And I think the job that kind of you and I play and others is that we generate content that they can then share with their family and friends. That's why I wrote Proof of Work is Efficient, is because I had heard the Bitcoin's bad because it uses energy FUD for so long. I wanted to give Bitcoiners that one-stop shop resource to where, if your uncle's complaining about its energy usage at dinner, after he reads my article, that's it. He should be convinced unless he's really, really stubborn.
Bitcoin has got this decentralized marketing, right? It's
It's decentralized marketing.
everyone doing their own. I do what I do. You do what you do. Everyone does
Exactly.
what they do.
And whoever makes the message that resonates the most makes the most money, which also brings in more people into
Boom.
Bitcoin. So it's a virtuous cycle.
So we should celebrate it, and we should support people who want to.
Exactly. Content creators in this space are really critical.
Yeah. Well, this is why I defend Pomp so much, right? Look, I don't have to agree with Pomp, but he's a great marketeer, and he will have brought more people into... It's a bit like the node thing, right? More people now are going to be running a node than were previous to when I did the show, because I've seen the YouTube comments, I've seen the DMs, and people have got in touch, and they've agreed with me and said, they've looked into this and are doing a node. More people are going to be buying Bitcoin or involved in Bitcoin or care about Bitcoin because of Pomp than if he'd have done nothing. Now,
agreed. And I've defended Pomp publicly as well, where I think there's a core group of Bitcoiners who really dislike him. And I'm like, I think he's a net positive.
Yeah,
I've said that.
And you've got to look at that. I think sometimes this Bitcoin purity is a bit too hard, right? It's a bit too hard to please everyone.
I'm a pretty pure Bitcoiner, but I'm also somewhat practical.
Yeah.
People have to make a living. At Kraken, we have a lot of different coins that we have available, which I think is fine. People should be able to buy and sell what they'd like, and I encourage them to. So I think some Bitcoiners, I think, are a bit harsh when it comes to what's morally acceptable in that group. I've been in the space for a long time, and I think I've tread a very good moral direction in this space. Nothing I've been associated with, I don't think has been spammy or scammy.
I'm glad you've become my friend as well, buddy.
Thanks, dude.
It's been good to get to know you and watch your journey and just hang out with you. And speaking of that, I could probably talk to you for fucking hours, but
yeah, we've got a beautiful view out here.
Yeah,
We've got a couple beers out. It's pretty hard not to just keep talking for the next couple hours.
But we have got to go and have a beer. We've got to go and prep for Okung's Bitcoin is. So listen, look, thanks for coming on, Dan. I always appreciate it. You're always welcome on the show. Just tell people, because you're creating some cool content now, so tell people where to find you, keep up to date on what you're doing, and then we'll go and grab a beer.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for having me on, Peter. I know we've been trying to get this on the books, and couldn't have picked a better spot.
Yeah.
To find what I'm writing about, follow me on Twitter @DanHeld. My name on there will be Dan Heddle, but the handle itself is Dan Held, or danheld.com, where I have my blog content.
All right, man. Take care. See you soon.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Okay, so what did you make of that? Pretty good, right? Dan is great. Really, really always enjoy talking to Dan. And we kind of did this interview off the cuff, even though we'd been wanting to do it for a while. It was one of those ones where I didn't want to have any prep, didn't want to have any distractions or questions. I just wanted to shoot the shit with Dan and talk about some of these things. And, Dan is the perfect guy to talk to about it. He's a growth guy. He's previously worked as a growth hacker. So I think we both understand where we're coming from about this. And also, Dan has got the right amount of realism while still being a Bitcoin-centric, hardcore OG Bitcoiner. And I think the UX issues are clear. And often when you speak to very technical people, because they find these systems easy, I think they can assume others do too. And that's just not the case. So where do we go with this? Do we have a future with custodial services in Bitcoin? I know some people think it's okay. Majority of hardcore Bitcoiners are like, no, you got to own your private keys. I support that, but how do we bridge the gap? How do we make it so not being custodial is a better experience? And I don't know. I mean, I won't be giving up my private keys, but will this work for your parents and grandparents? If we reach hyper-Bitcoinization, I mean, let's be honest, do we really think our granny is going to be sleeping with her private keys and protecting herself with a shotgun? Maybe for some, custody is inevitable. I don't know. It's definitely worth having the debate, and I know this will trigger some people, and I'm not saying we should give up our custody or private keys. That is a good thing, but for mass adoption, we're going to need a better user experience and solution that works for everyone. So anyway, lots and lots covered there. If you've got any questions, you can reach out to me. My email address is hello@whatbitcoindid.com. Thank you to everyone who supports the show. I've had some new patrons this week, which is pretty cool. If you do want to support the show, if you enjoy what I'm doing, it's all covered on my website. Just head to whatbitcoindid.com, click on the support section. It'll explain everything to you there. And yeah, if you've got any questions, hit me up. My email address is hello@whatbitcoindid.com.